Never gets old. Donald Trump, no matter what you think of the guy, by far the biggest attraction wherever he goes. Now, even when he went for jury duty in Lower Manhattan today, the camera is wall to wall. The Iowa State Fair, he drew bigger crowds than the fried Oreos, the cow sculpture made from butter, and every candidate put together. But it has not been just fun and games and helicopter rides for the Donald. He actually unveiled details about his immigration plan this weekend, and of course, he did it aboard his private chopper.
You'll rescind the Dream Act executive
You're
order,
going to
the
have to.
DACA.
We have to make a whole new set of standards. And when people come in, they have to
You're
come
going to
in.
split up families.
Chuck,
You're going to deport children.
Chuck, no. We're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them
they have
together
to
out?
go. But they have to go.
What if they have no place to go?
We will work with them. They have to go.
They have to go. That's the gist of the plan. Everybody, including what some on the conservative side call the anchor babies, they all leave under the Trump plan, of course, with a big wall, what do you call it, a strong wall that will be built along the southern border. Now, you make all the jokes and everything else. To me, substantive, he's putting out a plan because for the first time, I actually think he thinks he can, let alone wants to win this thing here. So he's not going away, at least anytime soon. The other notable thing, where's he getting his votes from? Well, if you look at the polls, guys like Scott Walker and Jeb Bush, the two presumed, guys who could kind of shepherd the party together, they're losing their numbers to Trump. He's rising in the polls, pulling numbers from those two, and for that matter, other candidates we thought would be at least in the top half of that graphic we have there. More and more people are considering him more than just a novelty. That after his barnstorming tour through Iowa this weekend. A lot of people, like yours truly, who thought this was a joke, now don't even know what to call it. Polls are starting to think he could actually take Iowa and other early states, and that would throw the whole primary process into chaos. So the question is Trump getting even more bulletproof? And I say nobody can figure this thing out here, okay? But the point is, they've thrown everything at him. They pointed out to the people that this guy is less conservative than Obama, right? I mean, so he's no true red meat guy. They don't seem to care. He brings the chopper with his name on it, throwing his money in everybody's face. They eat it up. Doesn't matter what he says about women, what he says about Latinos. Sure, he might be turning them off and maybe being poison pill in a general, but do you take this seriously now?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I think he's got the things that the conservatives want. They want somebody who's definitive, the guy, someone who's outspoken,
who's pro-choice, pro-gay marriage,
who has great charisma, and their main topics. He's hitting on the main topics: international security and how we handle the people in the Middle East, as well as immigration. And these are the things that he's focusing on very sharply. So it's not about the entirety of all the planks of the Republican platform, but he's focusing on the ones that get people most emotional. And that's why he is moving ahead very, very quickly. And he'll continue to do so, I believe, because the others are just, they're just all over the place, and they're trying to touch every little nerve to see where they can get a little spark or a little jump, but they're not going to get anywhere unless they do what Trump is doing. This is actually a great strategy. Think about it. Think about how many individuals tried to break into the Republic. Think of Giuliani, for instance. Okay, but he just couldn't strike on the chord that was going to make him and blast him into the top, the top few.
Dom, you've known this guy for 30 years, and I always believed this was like some of the other forays where you threaten to run for mayor, governor, or whatever, until he had to really release his financials or until he had to really commit any money, and he hadn't spent anything really. It's talk, free publicity, which he lives for. Do you believe, he said he was over the weekend, he'd be willing to spend $1 billion of his own money. I don't even think he has $1 billion, but whatever it is. Do you think he's actually going to be prepared to spend real money out of his own personal coffers on this campaign and start taking it seriously enough? He put out a position paper on immigration, but set up real campaign offices, bring in real people from the outside. Will we see that in the next 30 days?
I don't think you'll see a traditional type campaign, but this guy is for real. And to answer the question of whether he's conservative or he's really a Democrat in hiding or he's really in the race to benefit Hillary, I'm telling Richard, I told you guys this on day one, and I will continue telling you this, as he possibly could win Iowa and New Hampshire. And if he does, there may not be any stopping this guy to the nomination. In this case, personality trumps everything else. People see him as a winner. You focus on the helicopter. Those people in Iowa have never seen a Trump helicopter. And in between his appearances, he's giving the kids rides on his helicopter. That goes over very
Okay,
well.
but how come for Mitt Romney, he was this
I just told
unapproachable,
you.
elitist?
I just told you. Personality. They both come from a lot of money. Personality. Okay, let me put it to you this way. Is there anybody at this table that would like to spend or could spend 15 minutes listening to Jeb Bush without falling asleep? No. Is there anybody at this table that could do that without falling asleep? I don't think so.
I'm not going to take that bet. Well, let me ask you. You just posited last segment that I think it was Brad who was wrong. Usually it is. That you didn't like the term low information voter.
No, I don't.
Okay. These are people.
I'm going to say it again, low information
Exactly.
voters.
These are people who are committed enough to show up to go see these guys. He has nothing in common with where they are on all the supposedly third rail topics for conservative voters on social issues, gay marriage.
But this is where Brett is right. He talks about the two issues that get a spark going, coupled with the personality: immigration, foreign affairs, our security, and I would say economic prosperity of individual voters.
Okay, but if a voter has this scintilla of knowledge, they know you're not going to round up what he claims are 30 million Mexican immigrants.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
It
and you're not
doesn't
going to build
matter.
this giant wall.
That's the point. It doesn't matter. They are hungry for someone who they think stands up, speaks the truth, is not afraid, is not a traditional politician, doesn't say what he polled, all of that. Now, one thing I would say is we said all of this about Chris Christie. And he went down because he's a bully, and I believe that is the quality that will take Donald Trump down. Ultimately, the bully will lose out. But I think the personality coupled with the issues, it's dynamite right
I know
now.
this does me no good, but if you watch Meet the Press, he talked about our debt, and he was off by about $18 trillion. Okay, now I know nobody but other than me, maybe, and a few other people actually cared, but shouldn't that concern anybody who doesn't know what he's
Yes.
talking about?
He will disappear. This is a shiny.
Were you more sure of that a month ago?
Didn't even consider. I never considered we'd get to this point, but I'm still convinced that he's going to go away. And I think that he has nothing in common with Mitt Romney other than money, because Romney's pedigree versus Trump pedigree, Ocean Parkway, houses in Brighton Beach versus the Romney clan, it was totally different things. And I think the mechanics of getting on the ballot, the mechanics of campaigning, especially in southern states, they have people who they keep like locked up for 50 weeks out of the year that they let loose just for 2 weeks before election day, right? I mean, like the South Carolina version of us. You know, and they're going to find more. I don't think we have to look at the national press here. They're going to find things that Wayne Barrett and Tom Robbins wrote about him, and we're starting to see that knocked around social media. He has a long legacy of
But
aggressive,
haven't we
sharp
seen-
elbows
You're
in New York and in
100%
Brooklyn.
right. Before the show, I literally went through 200 of the worst things he said, and your jaw drops at some of the things. I mean, misogynistic. Pick a race that he hasn't offended, right? But my only point is, I would have thought, after what he said about women, I mean, going after Megyn Kelly of Fox, I thought, I mean, that's political
was pretty
suicide for the
disgusting.
right, and he got away with it. His polls went up.
I also question the polls. I know that's always like a thing, but the veracity of the polls, you know, ever since I disenrolled from a political party and I'm now an independent, unaffiliated, I get calls from pollsters all the time because they're like, oh, you know, an independent voter in Brooklyn. This is super interesting. Let's find out what this is about. I think my one answer on a question skews an entire poll. Now, depending on who's calling. So you're calling into these states and you get one person home instead of another, or you get three in a row, you know, on the same block. The sample of 1,100 voters in a national poll, and we're spending our time talking about it.
Don, really short, does the appeal of him, is it just about only him, or does it say something broader about where, as a country, we are, and maybe what people want now at these campaigns? So one thing I hear from people who don't follow this stuff, who don't even hate Hillary, okay, is, it sounds like she's reading from a script. And I give a look. It's not even what she's saying. It's that people don't want these, you know, camped, staged, 30-second sound bites. They don't like the fact that she's roped off from people talking. Now, maybe it's just people are bored in August and they don't know what to complain about. But what, I'm serious. It seems that people want something a little bit different this time around. They're tired of the same old, same old.
I hate to say this, Assemblywoman, but it is one because of low-interest voters. I call it the Kim Kardashian effect, you know, when nobody cares about anything really. And it's also a Kim Kardashian effect, and also because of Trump's personality, and people are sick of. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. The public know that you're full of crap.
We have this conversation every presidential cycle. The flash in the pan. People want something new. They were having this conversation with the Van Buren campaign. I don't. It's.
But it's never gotten
keep
this
doing
far
this.
Yeah,
with this
right.
much.
Well,
This
right,
much.
people were having this conversation about Ross Perot in '92. Of
Oh,
course,
he had
it
more
always gets
substance
this,
than
but-
Trump. That's not fair.
Wait,
I mean,
but-
he was buying PowerPoint presentations to do where he was going into facts and substance. He wasn't saying what he said about Kelly. I can't even say it on the air.
Right.
And he isn't insulting basically every Latino voter out there when he says anything. And then, inexplicably, the numbers keep going and nobody can explain it. How many people have said, who claim to know, that the next poll that comes out is going to be at 8%,
totally
6%?
different
And
media environment.
let's also speak about, you mentioned Ross Perot, and that's a great example. And you know
smart
what? That's
guy,
an
yeah.
example of a guy who really did catch the attention of a lot of people. And you know something, as
And
time
impacted an
goes on,
election.
guys and gals like that, they lose, and then all of a sudden,
Yep.
something happens and they win.
All right.
And this could be the case.
Coming up next, we're going to get a little closer to home and take a look at what's going on with Mayor de Blasio. Times now saying here that things not only are a mess that we all know between him and the governor, but also a mess maybe internally. His biggest problem, not just the feud with the governor, but confusion and dysfunction in his own office. Stay with us.